So this has been on my brain for a long time. Hello everyone, my name is Lucy. Welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to talk all about everybody's favorite girl next door, Betty Cooper. Now, if you've seen any of my other Archie Comics / Riverdale related videos, you will know that I grew up reading the Archie Comics. I think that Riverdale is tarnishing its name and not doing any of these characters the justice that they deserve. So that is what's prompted me to do this. So this will likely be the first character essay in a long series of character essays on the Archie Comics characters and how them and their relationships with others should be portrayed in Riverdale that would help dimensionalize them more while also staying truer to the comics. And we're gonna start this chain off with the main character of Riverdale at this point, Betty Cooper. Yes, I know that Archie is supposed to be the main character, but at this point, let's be honest, he's not. But we're gonna talk about that in his video. In the Archie comics, Elizabeth Betty Cooper is portrayed as a nice, beautiful, smart, sweet, tomboyish, and funny girl with blonde hair. She made her first appearance alongside Archie Andrews and Jughead Jones in the 22nd issue of the Pet Comics series in 1941. Betty's hobbies include sports, cooking, and making her own clothing. She has a talent with animals. She has a cat named Carmel, and is also very concerned with the environment and other social issues, often encouraging the rest of the gang to clean up after themselves. She keeps a small garden in her backyard to which she tends occasionally. Betty also has a gift in caring for the elderly, as she is hired by families to keep their elderly members company. Contrary to the dumb blonde stereotype, and despite her beauty, Betty is actually of above average intelligence and one of the smartest students at Riverdale High. She is a straight A student, has won several academic awards, and is almost never seen having trouble balancing her schoolwork and her extracurriculars. We're going to talk about her transition from the comic book to the TV show now. Now, obviously, for a teen drama or for any TV show that wants to have some kind of depth and substance to its characters, they can't do an exact replication of what I just described, because that character is a complete Mary Sue, and that would be very, very boring. But the direction they took with her in the show instead is horrible. It started out okay. In the first few episodes of season 1, they kind of made her like a cutesy teenager, and she obviously had a lot on her plate, and it kind of showed that stresses her out to have a lot on her plate, and she kind of wants to do her own thing. I'm definitely all for that. A little side note, I also miss the Betty that was dancing around in her room to music and being a teenager.
Miss that a lot.
The first time I really was bothered by Betty's new reincarnation was the episode my Minnesotan is showing. Anyway, is the episode where she first comes out as Dark Betty. I mean, I've talked about, I feel like, how that's incredibly problematic, and how that alter ego is clearly something that they made a mistake on, and they keep bringing it back, and they shouldn't be bringing it back, because in season 1 it was kind of a mental illness thing, and then season 2 it turned into a sexual thing, and then seasons 3 and 4 it turned into a mental illness thing, and she still has yet to seek any kind of help or treatment, or the way that this show treats mental illnesses is not something for this video, because it deserves a video of its own, honestly. One way that season 5 could just be so much better than seasons 2, 3, and 4 is that if they just shut down the Dark Betty, like just say, enough with the Dark Betty, we're done with it. That is a thing that would make season 5 much better. Now, I know that they were trying to, again, dimensionalize her character, make her a little bit deeper than just the fresh-faced Mary Sue girl in the comics, but her having a complete alter ego who wants to murder people is not the way to do that. What I would have liked to maybe see instead is just for the creators to come up with, you know, a more realistic way for her to rebel. Like maybe getting peer pressured into sneaking out of the house or not studying for a test. Not wanting to murder people and almost drown them in a hot tub while in a cabaret wig and a lingerie. And even if you do disregard Dark Betty, if you watched seasons 3 and 4, the only character trait that Betty has now is just being upset and bothered about things.
This is the last straw. We are not discussing this. We're not discussing anything. All of my accounts, including my college fund, have been completely drained of assets.
No, I'm trying to make sure that we stay together, that we have a future.
Undercover with the FBI, working with my long-lost half-brother, who I thought was dead.
And because I'm 2 days late, you're punishing all of my classmates?
Me? Nothing, no. You and I are not on speaking terms. You have been invading my privacy for years, and it's over. But hey, you know, at least they were fizzle rocks. I swear to God, you are not cornering me into joining your cult.
And that's pretty much her whole character. That's pretty much her reaction to everything. And I guess it makes sense because everything that happens in this show is bad, but this show is such a huge mess. Like, it just gives me anxiety just talking about it. The point that I'm basically trying to make here is that if the creators of this show, or the writers of this show, if they had played their cards right and did these characters justice, Betty would absolutely be one of the main sources of light in this show. One of the main sources of light, optimism, and you look at her and you feel happy. But the reality that this show has created is that Betty is not a happy person at all, and it just breaks my heart. A nicer, better reimagining of Betty that I would have liked to see rather than what we got is a nice, sweet, talented, very, very relatable girl next door who is involved in a lot of activities which causes her to be under a lot of pressure by a lot of people around her. This pressure really gets to her because she's so afraid of losing control of her life, which is another important part of her character in the comics. She's very afraid of losing control. That this stress gets to her and it causes her to snap every once in a while and make some bad decisions. But the people that she loves are always there for her at the end of the day, and she learns the lesson of sometimes you can't be in control of everything, and that she has to accept that. And I know that there are certain aspects of what I just described that are seen in the first episode of season 1, but that's long gone. long gone. And maybe because of all this pressure, it's revealed that she's been having problems with her mental health, and the show would approach it in a realistic, appropriate way, where they do their research on the topic and give her an arc that represents the issue and does it justice, rather than what they're doing right now. She definitely should not try to be like badass or threatening like she is in the show. Like, I remember this one scene in season 2, she was like talking on a Black Hood on the phone and she's like, "I'm breathing down your neck. Can you feel it? I'm gonna get you." And I'm like, no, that's not you. And since this is still like a teen drama mystery show, I think that, yeah, she would be good at solving mysteries and finding clues, and I do like how she compares herself to Nancy Drew, but Nancy Drew doesn't have a need to sexually threaten people by like saying that you're breathing down, that she's breathing down your neck. I just like thinking about how if this show was done correctly, we would have gotten such a lovable, relatable, sweet character that we would just want to hug all the time. so sorry about the lighting in this video. I'm really sorry. The sun is like going down, so the blinds on my window are kind of coming into the shot. Now, most of you probably know this, but Betty's most prominent friendship in the comics is Veronica Lodge. Now, Betty being the quintessential 17-year-old girl next door, her middle-class upbringing is meant to contrast the flashy lifestyle of her wealthy friend and rival Veronica Lodge. Nowhere is this more evident than when she and Veronica are competing for the attention of Archie Andrews. Although the two are often involved in disputes over Archie or something else that evokes jealousy, Betty and Veronica are best friends and have remained so since childhood. The two have commented that Jughead and Archie's friendship could not compare to theirs, which I think is very cute. In many stories, especially in many recent stories, Betty and Veronica are mostly seen getting along, teaming up, and helping each other. Veronica even once told Archie that she and Betty are only rivals in unimportant matters like boys. We're definitely coming back to that quote, if not in this video, then in another one. Now, I know that that description is dated, and I don't think that two best friends fighting over a relatively mediocre dude would fly today. Absolutely not. But we're gonna talk about this. Honestly, at this point, I'm just mad at the show. I really, truly am. This friendship between these two classic foils is iconic and 80 years in the making. And in the show, they're not even friends. I mean, they're supposed to be, but they have no scenes or storylines together anymore. The thing that maybe irks me the most about Riverdale, and that is really saying something for me, is that they have their characters say significant things, but they don't show it or back it up at all through their actions. Like, Betty and Veronica say that they're best friends, but if they didn't, the viewer would never know that because they never do anything together. Instead of having the viewers come to their own conclusions about how Jughead is a little different by the way he talks and the way he behaves, the show literally had him give a speech about it and tell the audience blatantly that he's weird. That's not good writing. Good writing has the viewer come to that conclusion by characters' words and actions and subtext. The show relies too much on Betty and Veronica's friendship in the comics to even give it any time in the show. Just because the comics have been saying that Betty and Veronica have been best friends for 80 years, the show doesn't have that right, because the comics have shown that friendship. For those 80 years, Betty and Veronica have their own series together. Several series together. And they're shown doing things together, shopping, cheerleading, whatever else. So how I would want Betty and Veronica instead to be in the show is to be friends, to do things with each other, for each other, to be there at each other's house when the other is upset. And the love triangle with Archie, I would still have it kind of just at the beginning of the show as it was. I would want Veronica and Archie to still date in the show, just maybe not as long as they've been. Because yes, Veronica and Archie definitely have a relationship in the comics. It's one of the most prominent relationships in the comics. So of course they should still date in the show. But there should not, I don't think, be any overlap for Betty and Archie and Betty and Veronica. We're gonna talk more about this friendship and more about what I would want in Veronica's character essay, but for now I obviously want to touch on it because this opposites attract friendship is something that could have been so great, and they just threw it right in trash. Now, Betty and Veronica, best friends in the comics, they should be best friends in the show too, but we're also going to talk about who I think should be Betty's other best friend in the show, and that is Jughead Jones. I'm going to tell you guys something. I actually like the scenes in Riverdale where Betty and Jughead are just talking. like they're friends and like not kissing or anything like that. Like if they're just together at a booth of Pops and they're just talking about stuff or just on the couch talking about stuff. I like those scenes because that's what I think they should be and nothing more. I love the fact that they're such close friends in the comics and how they confide in each other and talk to each other, especially since Jughead hates all the other girls. That friendship is so sweet. And I want that sweet, soft friendship to be in the show. I want Betty and Jughead to love each other platonically and think of each other almost like brother and sister. I'm definitely going to talk about this more in depth in my Jughead video, because obviously my Jughead video is going to be a lot about his erased sexuality in the show. But just know that I was and am still upset about having such a significant romantic relationship between two very significant characters that never existed in the comics. The only thing that even remotely hints to Betty and Jughead being more than friends in the comics is one time Jughead tells Betty that if there ever comes a time where he would willingly want to kiss a girl, it would be her. But even then, it really doesn't carry any significance because he's asexual, aromantic, and still doesn't want to kiss or touch anyone in that way. So any bughead that's even in the comics is basically just Jughead saying, I don't like girls, but if I did, I would like you because you're the only girl that I'm friends with. And honestly, I think that's sweet, especially for Jughead. And it showcases the really close, soft friendship between the two of them. And in the show, I don't think it should have gone any further than that. So now that my opinion is fully established that Betty and Jughead should not be more than friends, who would have been some better options for love interests in the show for her? Now, I want to make this clear before I start reading these options. Some of these people I think she should date, others I think she should end up with. That's very different. Another thing that's really bothered me about Riverdale is that they've had the exact same couples for the past 4 seasons, and in a teen drama, that's not categorically what you should do. It is literally part of the genre to spice things up and have different relationships and breakups and makeups and love triangles and everything like that. So Riverdale can't even teen drama correctly. Come on, guys. But anyway, onwards. We're gonna start out with the love interests that would be short-lived, that she wouldn't end up with. And we're gonna start that list with Reggie Mantle. Betty and Reggie have been known to date in the comics, more often in the earlier issues, but still sometimes today. They're seen kind of having a flirty relationship, at times even going as far as Reggie being there to comfort Betty when she's upset. And if you know comic Reggie, you'll know that that's quite out of character for him, like he wouldn't do that for just anyone. Although Reggie has difficulty admitting it, he seems to genuinely care for Betty, but often his self-image is more important. In the Life with Archie magazines that depict a future where Archie marries Veronica, Betty and Reggie are even portrayed as a loving couple in that universe. Now yes, Reggie's more prominent love interest in the comics is still Veronica, but all the same, I would be ready for Betty and Reggie to date, if not just for a few episodes. Or even like he's pursuing her for a few episodes until she finally gives in for a bit. Like imagine a scene like this happening in the show. That'd be so ugh. The next suggestion is somebody you're probably not expecting at all, but that is Jason Blossom. Now I understand why this would never work in the show. Jason dies before the pilot, he dates Polly instead, and they turn out to be third cousins, but if we just focus for a second on the Archie Comics canon and imagine if the show had taken things in another direction. In the comics, Jason is a malicious rival of Archie, and he has been shown to have a genuine crush on Betty and never on Veronica, which I find very interesting because Jason claims to only go for rich girls. Betty has gone out with Jason a few times, which of course makes Archie jealous. Now, if we disregard the events of the show for a second and think maybe if somebody else got murdered in the pilot and if Jason was actually there, I think he actually might have been a very interesting character. Just think about that. Him fighting feelings for Betty because he's been programmed to think that it's wrong to date someone like her. Like, that could have been a whole thing. Oh, also, side note, the Blossoms and the Coopers, they're not related in the comics. Like, they're not, like, cousins or whatever. So that, like, if you scrap that, too. This next one's gonna be quick, but the next one is Trev Brown. Do you remember that one guy in season 1 that Betty kind of made a date with? Well, that is actually Valerie's younger brother, and he exists in the comics to serve as another love interest for Betty. That's what I liked about season 1. Their characters were from the comics, and they fulfilled the same job as they had in the comics. But anyway, if that happened, it would be another really short-lived one. Okay, now we are going to get to who I think Betty should end up with, be with, you know, after the events of the show. If you've seen any of my other videos related to this topic, you will know what I'm about to say, but it's Archie Andrews. Like I said, if you've seen any other videos on my channel for more than 2 minutes, you will know that I root for Betty and Archie. And I've always been somebody who's rooted for Betty and Archie while growing up reading the comics and while watching this show. Now, if the show had played their cards correctly, Betty and Archie should have been the two main sources of light in this show. And I think Archie at this point is, he does a lot of things in his power to help people and to be the best person that he can be. But Betty, like I said before, is not. She is shown to be very, very upset, very bothered, to just be yelling at people all the time, and it's just, it's heartbreaking to see that. And not to say that Archie doesn't do that, but Betty doing it is much more prominent because, let's be honest, Betty has a much bigger role in the show than Archie. But like I said, if the show had done things correctly, Betty and Archie would be the two quintessential sources of happiness in Riverdale, and it would just make sense for them to be together. But even if you disregard my own vision of what the show should be at this point, and if you look at the actual show, Archie is always the one who kind of keeps Betty sane and makes her feel good.
Dear Diary, today was the best day ever.
When I think, Archie, of where I feel safest and most myself, I think of us in a booth at Pop.
Jughead, on the other hand, in the show has gotten her into many, many dangerous situations, went over her head and told the story about her father to get ahead at Stonewall Prep. He wrote a story in the last episode about how Betty is a psycho killer, knowing full well that she's very, very sensitive and insecure about that side of herself. So even if you disregard everything about Jughead's asexuality, everything about Betty and Archie just being a much better fit, everything about my vision of what the show should be, and if you just look at the show, Betty and Archie are still better. And I love how Cheryl basically told Betty to not choose Archie because he makes her feel good. Like that conversation in the second to last episode of season 4 when Cheryl's like,
You've been in love with that idea of Archie. The idea of the perfect romance. But that wasn't real. That was fantasy. But in this town of nightmares, you and Jughead found each other. That's real.
no, you've been in love with the perfect romance and, you know, feeling amazing and all of that. No, I think the man who you can be tragic and sad with, he's the one for you. Okay, Cheryl, whatever. And that conversation carries absolutely no significance in my book because she had no idea what was going on. Cheryl and Betty are not close. And it's so invalid because Betty has known Archie since they were in elementary school and they grew up together. You don't gradually fall in love with your best friend for 10 years to have some girl walk in and say, oh no, you've just been in love with the idea of him. How does that make any sense? But anyway, if the show did or does things right, Betty and Archie would end up together. But hold on. What if she can't end up with Archie? I hate to admit this, but there remains a very real possibility that she won't. So if she doesn't end up with Archie, who would be that second choice for her to end up with and marry? Not date, not have a fling with, but end up with and marry. Well, there is someone else. I don't even know how many of you know this, but Betty does have another prominent love interest in the comics. Do you know who he is? Well, I'm about to tell you. His name is Adam Chisholm. Now, I know that you might be thinking, like, who? Well, here's a brief history about him. Adam Chisholm, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Chisholm? It's spelled Chisholm, but I'm pretty sure here you pronounce it Chisholm. But anyway, Adam Chisholm was first introduced in Betty number 87. He enjoys playing sports such as surfing and football. As soon as he arrived, he became one of Betty's dating partners. He is Archie's main rival for Betty's affections. After he was introduced, he was deeply in love with Betty. She started falling for him, which gave her a dilemma. Should she stay with Archie, who frequently toyed around with her and Veronica, or should she leave him for Adam? Adam has proven a successful addition to the infamous love triangle of Archie, Betty, and Veronica. Though with Reggie, Adam, the Blossom twins, and Valerie involved, it's really not a love triangle anymore, is it? It was actually thought by some people that Betty had chosen Adam over Archie. This event made Archie jealous as he concentrated his attention to Betty, ignoring Veronica if he thought that there was a chance that Adam might take Betty away from him. Archie has always thought very poorly of Adam because of this jealousy and worry that Betty likes him more. This all came to a head in Betty number 99 and 100, which had a preceding survey asking readers what they think Betty should do, who they think she should choose. The readers voted, and in these issues, Betty appeared to be leaving Archie for good. But the two-part story ended with what the readers had voted for Betty to do, which was to date both. Betty continues to do so to this day. This show is jumping ahead 5 years. And that gives the writers a golden opportunity to refocus and bring in some great new characters from the comics. 5 years from high school, we don't know where these characters' lives are going to be. I mean, we know some stuff because it got, released or whatever, but we don't know what people are relevant in their lives anymore, and these people who are relevant in their lives, they could actually be people from the comics. So after this 5-year time jump, I would love to see Betty and Jughead being put to rest, like they had a good run, and if there is any love triangle that Betty is in the middle of, it should be with Archie and Adam. Woo! So obviously this character has existed for almost 80 years, and there are so many reiterations of her, just based on modernizing her and them just having different writers for various Archie comics. But the things that I've said in this video have mostly remained constant. Obviously, I can't go into a full depth analysis of a character that has existed for that long to fit in a video for YouTube. So if you have any other questions for me, any questions of other friendships of Betty's that I'd like to see, some other personality traits, character arcs, love interests. You can put them down in the comments. I would be more than happy to answer them. Or you could let me know your ways of improving the show for season 5. I know that I definitely want to do this with a lot of the other characters in Riverdale because, as you know, I don't think that they were done justice through this show. Like, honestly, just give them different names and it's just another teen drama. So if you have anything to say in that regard, and or in the regard of our girl Betty, let me know. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you liked this video, please don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell for more videos like this. I hope that you have a wonderful day and thank you so much for watching again.